My guess, 50s.
Yeah, 50s.
It's got the kind of 60s styles. This roof was so popular in the 60s.
Oh, yeah, like a Drogan style.
I wouldn't be surprised to see 60 or 61 on this, but maybe 59.
Yeah. So I'm here with Bernard J. Luther with
Applied Consultants.
And he is a certified engineer, correct?
Yeah, registered civil engineer, certified engineering geologist, registered geologist, certified hydrogeologist, licensed A, B, and C57 contractor.
Well, and a lot of signatures behind his name, definitely. And very well known in San Diego. And the way that I met Bernard was basically, we have a very good friend of mine who I've known for 35 years, Keith Okonski. He's been in construction for many, many years. Great guy, definitely. Yes, yeah. Never judge a book by its cover is what I always say.
That's right.
But amazing, and always the guy that there's always a way to get things done. Right?
Absolutely. Well, he's the guy that you go to if you want to have something done that's difficult.
Yep.
He'll figure it out, and I'll help him figure it out.
Well, and you did, and you just helped our other friends, Gary and Farah, who we just closed on Friday, helped them on their beautiful hillside home in La Mesa. You had your special guy, Jorge, come out there, and I mean, amazing. So, you know, we're talking about real estate, and we're talking about, from my business, is helping the buyers get what they want and also the sellers to feel comfortable. So we're up here in Candlelight, which is up here right up La Jolla Mesa, just east of it a little bit. So a hillside. In San Diego, geographically, is pretty hilly.
Yes, it is. And La Jolla, very commonly, especially on this street, I have one right up on Rittgers, just about a block and a half away, where what they want to do, they buy an older house, 1960s version like this, maybe late 50s, and they want to open up a couple walls. This house, they want to put cantina doors in the back, and then they want to go ahead and put a deck so they can take advantage of the view of the ocean. So we came in, and first of all, we have to analyze the house to make sure it's structurally sound.
Exactly.
So we look for cracks in the foundations. We look to see that the doors are square, that the windows operate correctly.
You don't see many cracks in the wall and things like that.
Look for cracks in drywall. They're not necessarily indicative of much. The cracks in the foundations are more what we look for.
So in this one here, we have carpet, and so you don't really, get a chance to see it unless you pull it up. How do you know if you don't pull it up? Is there a way that you can see?
You really don't. And you can bet that a house built in 1960 has a few cracks, especially considering the soils on Mount Dad are crummy. You know, there's a lot of fractures. There's a lot of faults running through here. Right. This whole mountain was created by a bend in the Rose Canyon Fault, pushing the geology up into this mountain. When the mountain was pushed up, it cracked, and it's all cracked in different directions. So that's why, we get all of our famous landslides like we had 2 or 3 years ago.
That was over on the other side.
There's been two on the other side. The Desert View that wiped out a whole bunch of houses, and then the recent one, which, as far as I know, doesn't have a name, but it only wiped out, 4 or 6 houses?
I'm not exactly sure on the amount, but yes, you've heard about it. And they're still building on that hillside.
Yeah, they're building that lot now. Yeah. They're actually drilling 80-foot caissons, 4 feet in diameter, and they're using that to anchor the foundations to those caissons. So
tell a little bit about the caissons, because a lot of people don't know what those are.
Well, what you have is you've got a landslide, pre-existing slide. So you've got a slide plane that kind of goes under the surface, and it can be any depth from 5 feet, which is most of them we see, little shallow guys that are cruising down the hill, or like over on Desert View, 80 feet down or 70 feet down.
Wow.
So what you want to do is you use these giant, large diameter caissons with lots of steel in them to actually pin the slide so that it doesn't want to slide anymore.
And those are surrounded in concrete, right?
Right. What it is you drill a deep hole, you drop a wire cage down the center of it, you put centralizers, and then you pour it full of concrete all the way to the top. Takes advantage of 2 properties. The properties of concrete are that has infinite compressive strength, and the property of steel is it has infinite shear strength. So when you combine the 2, you get kind of the perfect mixed medium. So it won't shear because the steel's in it, and it won't compress because the concrete's in it.
Okay.
So then you use that to anchor the foundation, and then you build the house up from there.
Wow. So you're learning a lot here in depth from one of the top professionals. So we've used them for several deals just in the last 3 months. So we used you on another one over on Exchange, and we closed for $3.1 million helping them. And it was nothing like we're dealing with here. So a little bit here, we're cut and fill here, 11,000 square foot lot. The buyers ended up pulling up the carpet and saw it. And this is the home of the parents of my clients. So the clients haven't lived in here for 40 years. And the dad was very diligent about things. And it looked like that was about 40 years ago. And actually there was a crack in here and he put silicone over it or what?
Okay, just filled it.
Yeah, filled it a little bit. It didn't look like it moved a lot, but
Keep
you guys
the bugs
came out. Yeah, and you said, hey, you can go in and redo the whole concrete for a certain amount, or we can fix this or do nothing, and it doesn't look like it's moved. So.
Right. And that's what we look at. When we look at a house like this, for instance, we look to see if the slab is generally flat. Okay, generally flat has a definition. The American Concrete Institute says that a residence can be installed plus or minus 3/8 of an inch. So when the guys are finishing the surface of the concrete, they can go ahead and make it plus or minus 3/8 of an inch. Wow. So if you average that out, that could be up to 3/4 of an inch differential.
Wow.
So consequently, if we look at a house and we get, little ups, little downs, but we don't see primarily cracked footings, or we don't see any cracks over 1/4 of an inch, then what we attempt to do, we still want to repair the slab, because a slab's function is basically to hold the weight of people walking on it and all the stuff that you put in the house, like washers, dryers, refrigerators, and some of the stuff is heavy.
Exactly.
So we generally repair it in a manner such that it won't shift anymore, because now it's sheared. Now it's going to have a tendency to want to wag in that area. So we usually will either cut a window, put rebar across the opening, and pour it full of concrete so that we have a one-piece homogeneous slab, or we will fill it full of an epoxy cement that's stronger than the existing concrete if we don't feel that there's much danger of it moving at all.
Right. It was epoxy that he used, yes.
Yeah, the epoxy. And epoxy is amazing stuff. We did a series of experiments 15 years ago with a guy named Lou Burby, who epoxied a bunch of cracks, and we cored them. You could not break. The concrete would break before the epoxy would come separated from it, or before the epoxy would break, the concrete would break off of it.
So you've been in the business 41 years. You're still very, very active. Yeah. With that said, about how many homes do you probably inspect a year, would you say?
I just did report number 9,967 yesterday.
And that's in your career, or?
Yeah, since I started the firm, which was actually, I didn't start the firm until 1984.
Wow.
So
that's a lot of reports.
Yeah, so we do about 330 a year. Maybe,
wow, so one a day almost.
Some years we'll do 400. Some years we'll do 280.
Well, that's great. So, and this is one of the things you want to do. And also when you're buying a home, one of the things that we learned always pull up the carpet if you can, if the home is probably from the 60s or before that, right? Would you? Anything else? Because this is for our clients, buyers, and sellers.
A lot of times we're called in to, we don't have the carpet set, but we feel a lump, I looked at one 3 days ago up in North County, and I felt the lump. So, but I think, when you get lumps under carpets that have been in there for a period of years, a lot of times I'll pull that up, it'll feel like a crack, and it's just bunched up padding or something like that. So really, unless we can get our eyes on it, we can't say much. Now, the house that I'm talking about, I wrote the report on it because the footings were level. Okay. Windows operated, doors were square as could be. There was a little hump, maybe 3/4 of an inch in the center of the room. So I said, okay, if it is cracked, fill it full of epoxy. Don't worry about it, because the house is generally stable. The other thing on homes like this, mostly, the weight of the house rests on the perimeter foundations, rests on the footings. It holds the entire weight of the house. Footing cracks are what we're always looking for to determine whether it's actually a structural issue.
Right.
If the footings are cracked, then we could potentially, if that moves, the structure moves.
Right. And we don't want that, definitely.
No. So what we do then is generally go under that, put a grade beam under it, and then fill the crack full of epoxy so that we can hold it up and so that the footing doesn't move.
Right. So one of the reasons why we bring Bernard and his company in is to save the transaction, because that buyer may think, oh my God, it's going to cost hundreds of, and that was this buyer. They thought it was going to take $100,000 to fix it. And he's saying, basically, based on my analysis, you really don't have to do anything. But if you really, really, really want to, maybe $25,000 tops. And that could save a transaction for a real estate agent, but it saves for a home because the buyers have been here already during escrow. They've been here like 7 times because they love the neighborhood. They love the house. They love everything about it. And it's an older single level home right up here on La Jolla Mesa. So yeah, it's Bernard Luther and Carlos Gutierrez. If you have any questions regarding anything real estate related, and we're going to be exposing all our professionals and our high level, as you can tell here, Bernard Luther, check it out on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. You'll be seeing all his contact there. If you ever need him, you can reach him there. So I definitely highly recommend him. And you got my vote of confidence in every deal that I ever do. And there's any question, he'll get there quick. That's one thing I love because some are like weeks and weeks and weeks out. It's all about knowing somebody. So thanks, Keith Okonski. I appreciate it. So we'll see you at our next real estate update.